Sydney is only 11 years old when her mother leaves for Europe for an entire month. There is no babysitter, no plan, no emergency contact, just a single, crumpled $20 bill pressed into Sydney's hand. Her mom calls it independence, smiles brightly, and rolls her suitcase out the door. The house falls silent the moment the door shuts. Sydney tries to convince herself she will be fine. She lines up the few cans in the pantry, checks the half-empty fridge, and tells herself this is a challenge she can win. But fear creeps in fast. The emergency credit card her mom left behind doesn't work. Food delivery apps reject it again and again. The truth hits hard. She is completely alone. At first, Sydney turns survival into a game. She slices bread paper thin, spreads peanut butter carefully, and pretends this will someday be a funny story. But by day 3, the humor disappears. The pantry is nearly empty. Her stomach growls loudly in the quiet house. The TV stays on just to drown out the loneliness. That night, Sydney opens her notebook and writes one word at the top of the page: evidence. She lists the facts. Left alone at 11, $20, no food plan, no check-ins. She doesn't know why she's writing it, only that it feels important. Before going to bed, she records a short video on her phone, quietly documenting the truth. If no one is watching yet, she decides one day they will be. By day 5, hunger becomes constant. Sydney feels dizzy when she stands and weak when she walks. She eats dry cereal straight from the box, trying to make it last. Still, her mom hasn't called. No text. No concern. Just silence. Sydney considers messaging her best friend, Emma, but stops herself. Admitting the truth feels worse than being hungry. Instead, she sends a normal message, pretending everything is fine. There's no reply. The notebook fills with more lines. Day 5, no call. No food. Still alone. Then another sentence appears. If I disappear, this will prove it wasn't my fault. Something shifts inside her. This isn't just about surviving anymore. It's about accountability. On day 7, Sydney stares out the front window at kids riding bikes and parents walking dogs. Normal lives.
Normal care.
She whispers a question into the empty room. Do you know what this will cost you when someone finds out? Then the doorbell rings. Frozen with fear, Sydney approaches the door. Standing outside is Mr. Hughes, her school counselor. He says he's been trying to reach her parents. When Sydney tells him the truth, that they're in Europe and she's been alone for almost a week, his expression changes instantly. This is no longer a secret. Mr. Hughes steps inside and looks around. The empty counters. The bare fridge. The quiet house. He asks careful questions, and Sydney answers honestly. No food. No working credit card. No adult. This is neglect, he says softly. And it's dangerous. The word neglect echoes in Sydney's head. Laws. Consequences. Things she's only heard about on TV. When he asks if she wants real help, the kind that makes sure this never happens again, Sydney hesitates. Saying yes means her parents will face consequences. But she's tired of pretending. Yes, she says. I want them to see what they did. Mr. Hughes calls her neighbor, Mrs. Johnson, and contacts Child Protection Services. When Mrs. Johnson arrives and sees Sydney's condition, her face fills with shock and concern. For the first time, Sydney doesn't feel invisible. A caseworker soon arrives and inspects the house. She notes everything: the empty fridge, the unused credit card, the lack of supervision. Sydney answers every question calmly, even showing the one selfie her mom sent from Paris with the caption "Finally free." Before leaving, the caseworker says Sydney won't be alone again. Arrangements are made for her to stay with Mrs. Johnson temporarily. As Sydney packs her bag, she looks around her room one last time. This is the place you left, she whispers. But it's not the place you'll find. Crossing into Mrs. Johnson's house feels like crossing into another life. The fridge is full. The air smells warm and clean. For the first time in days, Sydney eats a real meal, spaghetti made from scratch. The taste nearly makes her cry. As they cook, the adults tell her to keep everything: receipts, notes, messages. More evidence. More truth layered carefully, so it can't be denied later. The caseworker asks if Sydney wants to write a statement for her parents. Sydney doesn't hesitate. She writes about the fear, the hunger, and the loneliness. About counting crumbs while her mom counted vacation days. If there are consequences, she writes, they are not because I betrayed you. They are because you left me. That night, as Sydney sits safely at the table, she overhears words like investigation and possible loss of custody. She doesn't fully understand them, but she understands enough. For the first time, the adults are no longer protecting her parents. They are protecting her. Weeks later, Sydney's parents return from Europe expecting their house to be exactly as they left it. Instead, they find strangers, official reports, and questions they can't escape. The empty fridge isn't just empty, it's documented. The silence isn't forgotten, it's recorded. Sydney watches as her mother's confidence collapses under facts she can't argue with. The notebook, the videos, the receipts. The statement written in an 11-year-old's handwriting. Child Services explains what neglect means, what responsibility means, what consequences look like. For the first time, Sydney isn't being told she's mature enough. She's being told she deserved better. Her parents try to explain, try to soften it, try to blame misunderstandings. But the evidence doesn't listen. Sydney doesn't smile. She doesn't yell. She simply tells the truth. And that truth changes everything. Sydney is eventually given a choice: return home under strict supervision or remain in a safer placement until trust is rebuilt. This time, the decision is hers. She chooses safety. The investigation continues, and her parents are required to attend counseling and parenting programs. Independence is no longer a joke. It's a responsibility they failed. Sydney keeps her notebook, not out of anger, but as proof of survival. She learns something powerful: telling the truth is not revenge. It's protection. Looking back, she realizes that the $20 wasn't the worst part. The worst part was being forgotten. And the best decision she ever made was refusing to stay silent. Because some lessons should never be forgotten.